Hello everybody and welcome back to the Dragon's Library. Today we are going to be talking about Black Panther Wakanda Forever. Now before we get started, we need to address the elephant in the room. This movie is interesting for a few reasons. First up, Chadwick Boseman died. Happened a few years ago at this point, and it very much derailed their plans. Now I'm not saying this to make light of his death or anything like that. He was an amazing actor. Wish him all the best. But it did change the way this movie came out because, the main actor who's supposed to be the lead role is no longer there. And I just wanted to get that out of the way before I get into this. I am going to be going over that, and I think it's going to be a very interesting thing to talk about today. So let's get into it. This movie has impressed me on multiple fronts. First up, we are starting out with Black Panther. So the movie starts off with T'Challa dying from a disease that Shuri believes could have been cured by a reinfusion of the heart-shaped herb, the thing that gives the Black Panther a superpower, but they were all destroyed by Killmonger in the previous movie. Warning at this point. Spoilers for Marvel, because it's a Marvel movie. Of course they're connected to other Marvel movies. Get over it. Anyway, 1 year after his death, Wakanda is under new pressure from other nations to secure vibranium, and some people are even trying to steal it by force. In addition, they have also been looking for vibranium outside of Wakanda and discover a untapped store underneath the ocean due to a detector built by an unknown person. However, when they attempt to retrieve the deposit, or at least verify its existence, they are attacked by the Atlanteans, who kill the entire, research team. With the device lost, the Atlanteans, led by Namor the Submariner, turn to Wakanda and threaten them to both help retrieve the person who created the detector and to keep their secret from the world, lest they unleash war upon the surface world. And that's basically the major plot. That's all there really is to this. Now we're also dealing with Shuri and her grief over losing her brother, and Wakanda and the Queen in, their grief over losing both their king and their son. And it's essentially a movie about how people react to grief, which is definitely a way to take this series. I gotta admit, folding in the loss of Chadwick Boseman as the loss of T'Challa was the right move. You could have gotten a replacement actor, but it would have been very, very poorly received, I feel like, because T'Challa and Chadwick Boseman's portrayal of T'Challa in particular was so well received in the first movie that you just can't replace him. And I like what they did here. I think they did a really good job. I'm just saying this right off the bat. So let's move into the characters, because I think this is where this thing really kind of shines for me. First off, you got Shuri as the Black Panther, played by Letitia Wright. She was in the first movie as Black Panther's younger sister. Apparently, from what I've heard, she also took over the Black Panther mantle in the comics at one point. And she has this very interesting arc about grieving over T'Challa and other losses throughout the movie. Not going to go into spoilers there. And her new role now. Because, see, the thing is, she never really wanted... She was sort of like the Merida-style princess, if that makes sense. Like, she was technically a part of the royal family. She was, his younger sister, but she never expected to inherit the throne. She never expected to really have any responsibilities. She was the Tony Stark, essentially. She went to Wakanda. She was like a super genius. She worked in Wakanda. She was a super genius. She was essentially like the head scientist. She made a lot of T'Challa's gear. And she felt very comfortable in that role. Both the character and the actress, I want to say. However, after T'Challa's death, it's very clear that she's being forced to take on more and more responsibilities because she's, now the heir. And she has to deal with the fact that both her and her mother are grieving this in different ways. She's always been very scientifically minded about these things. She didn't really believe in the stories about the astral plane or anything like that, even though we seem to exist in T'Challa's own visions. And there's actually a great moment early on where they're, just grieving the loss, and her mother takes her out to the river, away from everything. It's just like, look, these are the robes we wore at his funeral. And traditionally speaking, we're supposed to burn these when we're done grieving. And Shuri's like, look, I can't stop grieving him, because if I stop, I'm going to want to burn the world down, because I'll just be angry. And there's this huge moment where she talks about, feeling T'Challa's presence, and she's just like, that's just your mind looking for patterns to help you, just your mind constructing patterns to help you grieve. And there's this really good line from Angela Bassett, who's playing Ramonda, the Queen of Wakanda, and she basically just says, one of the most interesting responses I've ever just heard to religious versus science, and it's like, she doesn't dismiss what Shuri says. She's like, all right, so what does your mind do to help you do? Like, what are you processing as T'Challa's presence? What do you see as his, like, remnants of what's left behind? I forget the exact line off the top of my head. But it was just this beautiful line of Shuri trying to process things in her own way and Ramonda giving her that space. And it was just a great moment, I think. It really showed the Queen as this, like, complex character who was grieving but still wanted to help her daughter get through it on her own terms, even if they disagree about how that process has to happen, which is just really sweet. Small little moments you don't get like that often, and a very interesting perspective. And it's just, there's really good writing. Like, I gotta get this, the script writers. They nailed this. They knocked it out of the park. They were handed a seemingly impossible task. And we're gonna kind of move on to the writing here. Although, alright, you know what? Before I move on to the writing, let's talk about Namor. He's the villain. And I'll be going over this more later in my talk about some of the things this movie did really, really well. But Namor is currently being played by... Oh, God, I'm going to screw this name up so hard. Tenoch Magia? Tenoch Magia? And he... So I don't really know much about Namor. I know he's sort of like the DC dickish Aquaman. Like, he's sort of an anti-hero, rules over Atlantis in this timeline. One of the things that's really interesting is they have a Mayan Atlantis, so it's really cool. I'm going to talk about some of the things they do with him, which is just great. But he has this very Killmongerish attitude towards him, but a lot more well-adjusted, if that makes sense. Killmonger was very arrogant and oftentimes very forceful in a lot of ways. And Namor is much better at playing the subtle long game, which I gotta give him to him as a character. He's also has justifiable reasons for acting the way he does, and genuinely is kind of an asshole, but also seems to be in the right, sort of. Like, he's not entirely wrong in his fears and motivations, which is very nice. He's also one of the first character who's have been actively called a mutant in the MCU. Now they own the X-Men. They officially called Namor a mutant because apparently he's also he's half human, half Atlantean, and he also had the X gene, so he's a mutant as well in the comics, from what I understand. So, yeah, there's a lot going on in this character. We'll get to that a little bit later. For now, I want to get into the writing, because holy shit, the people who wrote this, I'm just going to go over them real quick, because they were given an impossible task. I mean, the first Black Panther was one of the most well-received Marvel projects ever, and Ryan Coogler, who was given the job to write this, apparently, because I actually looked this up, he didn't know that Chadwick Boseman was going to die. They had a script all ready to go, and then he died. Chadwick Boseman was supposed to, like, start gaining weight again for the movie, and he just died. And they had to retool this script from nothing, without the ability to recast him, because there would be a whole backlash. And they had to twist the entire story around it. And you know how they say limitations are just the mother of creativity or whatever? These limitations, losing a cast member, being forced to rewrite the script, it caused them to get very, very intimate and very creative with the script in such a way that I'm just beyond impressed. Like, this is the kind of thing that destroys projects. Sudden cast deaths, having to rewrite the script at the last minute. I can only imagine the insane amount of time he put into this, the insane amount of effort, and I just have to give it to him. Ryan Coogler, amazing job on the script. Fantastic job. Like, the fact that they had to rewrite this all because of Chadwick Boseman's death, and they managed to do such a good job while still keeping into the spirit of the films, was just so impressive on so many levels. I genuinely lack the ability to describe that officially. Moving on from that, we're going to start going to the other things I really, really like in this movie. And let's just start with Shuri. I really like Shuri as a character. I always thought she was fun in the previous movies. And I think they really stepped up to give her a believable character arc about trying to move past her grief and do what's best for her people and become the new Black Panther. But one of the things I really like is that in the end, she doesn't end up becoming the queen. She ends up going off to live her own life. While still being Wakanda's protector, which I really like. I like that we can, Black Panther, it's like out in the world, being a superhero, as opposed to being trapped in Wakanda, being the queen the whole time. I'm really interested to see where she goes, especially with that twist in the end credits. So, in addition, we also have their depiction of Atlantis. And I want to say something quick. This might be one of the best coolest depiction of the Atlantis I've ever seen. So the way this Atlantis worked, because for those of you who don't know, because I'm a bit of a mythology nerd, and whenever I see stuff like this, I have to inject that. Atlantis was a allegory created by Plato in one of his stories. It was not an actual Greek myth, and to make this very clear. And it was his landmass that Plato essentially lied about in the Pacific Ocean for the sake of a allegorical tale, which he loved to shit with his readers, but they really should have known he wasn't telling the truth. Anyway, people took him literally, and that's why we thought Atlantis was that. But even in Plato's stories, Atlantis was a foreign invading nation that came to conquer Greece. They were associated with the god Poseidon, but they weren't Greek, which makes it really weird that all the depictions of Atlantis in popular culture are very Greco-Roman, you know? It's strange. However, they do a really cool twist for this version of Atlantis. They actually call it something different, I believe. What was it? Talokan. And it's because this version of Atlantis is based on Mayan myths and legends, or Mesoamerican myths in general, because they tend to bleed together in the popular culture. Specifically, So we saw that the god Quetzalcoatl, he was a background character in Thor Ragnarok, if you look closely in one of the frames, because I'm one of those obsessive people that does, whenever I see like a bunch of gods in the background, I have to pick them all out. Was like a god, apparently. But Namor, after he was born, was confused with the feathered serpent god Kukulkan, which is another aspect of Quetzalcoatl. That's what the Mayans called him. Anyway, basically the whole civilization is like the Mayan civilization. So like during their collapse, during like the disease, which is one of the theories of what wiped them out was disease and famine and stuff, he essentially was born from one of the women who had to drink this special substance to cure themselves of the disease. Basically, their shaman went to this cave, prayed to their god, and ground up this rare herb growing from a vibranium deposit nearby. Because this was one of the other areas where the vibranium meteorites fell. In exchange for curing the disease, it gave them, essentially turned them into Atlanteans and turned them into fish people. However, because Namor's mother was pregnant with him when she drank it, and he became a mutant, he was given the ability to actually live on land long term. They all have gills, and whenever they're on the land, they have to like wear these like water masks. But he was actually born a mutant, and he was still being incubated while his mother drank. So he was gained these winged feet that let him fly, sort of like think Hermes sandals, but they're just attached to his ankles. It's really weird, but they actually pull it off pretty well with the effects, I think. So he can fly, he's super fast, super strong, that kind of thing. You know, the standard superhuman buffs. Anyway, I really think they did an impressive job with the underwater city. The Atlantis in this world feels very, I don't know, realistic is almost the word I'd use. The underwater areas are very dark and creepy, but then they use some of the vibranium to create this giant sun underwater. And it's just this beautiful moment where it illuminates the darkness and you see this like strange, almost alien world where people have clearly been basing their lives around the fact they can shoot. Like, there's this really stupid thing I see a lot of times in underwater media where you'll have like underwater civilizations and they'll have like roads and shit. And it's like, why do they have roads? You're in water. You swim around. Like, a lot of media doesn't take into consideration the differences in architecture you would have if everyone could just swim everywhere. It's sort of like, why would we have roads if everyone could fly everywhere, you know? And I just think it was very cleverly designed. There are all these things, like you see kids playing games where they're firing these balls through hoops. Or not hoops, but like rings of stone. You have like these dark crevices and everyone's kind of in all these different buildings jutting out from all the coral and the sides of the caverns. And it's just very interestingly designed. I love the Mayan Mesoamerican flair. I quite frankly got a little geeking out every time they called him Kukulkan or Quetzalcoatl because quite frankly I just think it's amazing. And I'm just a huge nerd like that, so. Anyway, me geeking out about all that aside, there's one final thing, and it was a doozy. Michael B. Jordan returns. Surprise, surprise, motherfuckers. Killmonger makes an appearance in the spirit world. I'm not going to go any further than that, but it was very good. So, with all that out of the way, do I have any downsides? Not really. I mean, I want to say I have some, but this movie was just so good. I'm struggling to think of something that's not great. I think they underutilized some of the side characters. I would have liked to have seen the side character with their American friend. What was his name? Everett K. Ross. He's the one who helped out Wakanda, before in the last movie. And they discover him and arrest him, but they free him at the end of the movie. However, America's doing something scary. But even then, I loved his scenes with that director. Like, basically, he got in trouble for spying for Wakanda. When the director finally confronts him, it's like, why are you helping them? It's like, because after all these years of having vibranium, they haven't, used it to take over the world. And I'm just imagining what and have you ever imagined what the U.S. would do if we had that much vibranium? And the director lady is like, I dream about it every night. And you just get the idea that she's like an asshole. There's no other way for it. Now, I will say, and Anika and maybe Nakia are sort of underutilized. I think Nakia gets her own pretty good arc here, but I do feel like she was utilized a bit too little. I would have liked a bit more with her. All in all, though, these are minor things. I did like Riri Williams. She plays, basically Ironheart. She's sort of like a female Tony Stark. She's been studying Star Tech. She's a genius, super genius like him. She also builds a robot suit, and she's the one who built the vibranium detector. So she shows up. She kind of gets brought to Wakanda, under protection, obviously, because the vibranium detector is a very, very valuable thing. Anyway, aside from that, there's not really much. I think this movie was just all around knocked out of the park. Would I have liked it more if we could have seen what T'Challa would have done in his future movies? Would I have really liked a Chadwick Boseman movie? Honestly, if this guy was writing the next Black Panther with Chadwick Boseman, I would murder someone to get a hold of that movie. But, we can't get a hold of that movie. It doesn't exist. It will never exist. And quite frankly, I can't think of anything else they could have done that would have turned out this good as a sequel. All in all, I gotta give this a flat 9 out of 10. It's not the best thing. Hell, you know what? I'll give this a 10 out of 10. I think this is just a fantastic movie. One of the best things Marvel's released, I want to say, all year. They are just continuing to hit it out of the park, quite frankly. So, yeah. With that out of the way, we are going to have a brief spoiler section. Don't worry, it won't be long. I'm just going to be going over some stuff because it's the MCU and I've got to speculate about where we're going. So, first things first, Killmonger does show up, and I love his scene with Shuri. I couldn't talk about it before, but I have to talk about it now. See, Shuri gets really pissed because after they fail, or after they start working against Namor, he and a small group of Atlanteans do a siege attack on the main city of Wakanda, their capital. And in the process, they try and drown Riri Williams because she's the one who knows how to make the vibranium detector that's put their city at risk. And Namor wants her either dead or locked up forever. And he doesn't trust Wakanda to do it properly. As a result, the Queen and her are about to drown. However, the Queen, despite having an escape route, goes back to save Riri Williams, but in the process, they both nearly die. Riri is revived thanks to some emergency CPR, but the Queen ends up dying in the end. Obviously, Shuri's a little pissed that the last living member of her family has been taken from her, and in the process of her grief, manages to finally crack the way to recreate the heart-shaped herb using the vibranium-grown plant stems that she got from a bracelet given to her by Namor. As a result, she's finally able to recreate the heart-shaped herb and undergoes the ritual to become the Black Panther to seek revenge for what Namor did to both her country and her mother specifically. However, when she goes into the vision world and she finds herself in, the palace and she's seeing the world outside and she sees that she's finally come to terms with the fact she's in the astral plane, she goes to the chair and it's like, T'Challa? And it's like, sorry, little cousin. Because Michael B. Jordan is there as Killmonger, and holy shit, this movie just got kicked up a notch. Yeah, instead of trying to do a CGI replication of Chadwick Boseman here, they dove for the kill here with Killmonger. Because at this point, Shuri is so angry. She hates the world that took her brother from her. She hates the fact that Killmonger burned down the herbs that she was convinced could save him. She's furious at Namor, who attacked her city, killed so many of her citizens, and killed her mother. And she's just lost all this, and she just wants the world to fucking burn. She's pissed. She's absolutely pissed. She's gone like full vengeance mode here. And Killmonger's like, and she's like, why are you here? You ruined everything. And he's like, oh, you're just like me. And she's like, no, I am nothing like you. It's like, no, you want to make them hurt. You see something unfair. You see someone who has destroyed everything you love. You see a world that has wronged you, and you want to fix it, regardless of the cost. And he's right. She does. She accepts that, too. She goes full vengeance. She's fully prepared to kill Namor, regardless of the cost. Like, full on, I will kill you even if it destroys everything we both love. And she's just absolutely pissed. Like, beyond pissed. However, in the final battle, she can't bring herself to do it. She finally can't bring herself to do it, and she forces Namor into a truce. She will spare his life if he leaves her friends, her allies, and her country alone. And Wakanda will keep the secret of their existence, because they managed to hide it from the US, and the rest of the world. So the Atlanteans continue to live in peace. However, if they ever attack Wakanda again, they will go to war. And Namor agrees. And at first you think he's just like, I've got to protect my people at any cost. Because Namor, for all his faults, does seem to genuinely care about his people more than anything else. Like, he's doing this for them. Not like in the selfish way of, I'm actually just secretly a dictator. No. He genuinely seems to be doing what's best for his people. Regardless of his own feelings at times. However, at the end of the movie, you kind of learn his reasoning, and you start to realize, holy shit, this might not end well for the rest of the world. See, Namor originally wanted Wakanda to team up with him and destroy the rest of the world, which, very Killmonger of him, I know. However, when he gets back, one of his generals is like, how dare you? Why are you doing this, my lord? And his people see him like a god, because he's, super long-lived, he's been alive for, like, multiple centuries at this point. And he's, like, obviously more powerful than any of them. He can live on land or water. He's their king, he's their god. He's Kukulkan, the feathered serpent god. And he's just like, oh, no. No, we're not giving up. No, we've just set the stage. We've made Wakanda our ally. And they have made us back off for the time. Fair. However, they are growing increasingly isolated on the world stage. And the US is obviously planning, along with multiple other powers, to try to steal vibranium. And when they turn on Wakanda, Wakanda will have no other allies but us to turn to. And once the world's hurt them, they will be perfectly willing to burn it down to the ground with us. I've just ensured that the two vibranium superpowers of the world, one of whom the rest of the world doesn't exist, will be mobilized the instant that Wakanda comes under attack. Which, for a fact, he's probably going to be pushing on the side to ensure his own kingdom's safety and security in the long term. Which is deviously curious of him. He's essentially banking on the fact that humans are, like he said, horrible and awful. And he's not wrong. We already know that several high officials in the U.S. were plotting to do something to Wakanda. They had arrested Wakanda's only supporter, Everett K. Ross, over the fact that he was helping them, despite his pleas that, look, they didn't do this, they need our help, we should just help them. And they clearly seem to see vibranium as a new super weapon that they can play with like they did nukes. Look, I'm sorry, that's what we did. Let's be honest here. We played around with nukes, Bikini Atoll, all that shit. We fucked around with powers we didn't understand just for the hell of it. And now there are multiple people with nukes pointing at each other, which has always felt deeply uncomfortable. I think about death a little bit too much. Anyway, that we already know that Secret Lady is doing something, and I think she's the same one who's been putting together that Thunderbolts team, so we're going to see that soon. Plus, we also know that the U.S. isn't the only country doing this shit. At the beginning of the movie, several soldiers or mercenaries hired by Paris get brought into the UN so they can, along with proof of their affiliation with Paris and France, because they were trying to steal vibranium from a Wakandan outreach center. So we already know that the world is already kind of pushing Wakanda to siding with Atlantis to go wipe out the rest of the world. So they're not really wrong. Anyway, that's basically all I had for spoilers because I really want to talk about that. I really like this movie as a whole. I think it's fantastic. With that out of the way, let's move on to the announcements. So, I have a few different announcements to make. First up, I am currently going to continue my stream of God of War Ragnarok. I just started it last week on Thursday. I'm going to be streaming it Tuesday and Thursday at 7:30 p.m. both on Twitch and here on YouTube. So please come check that out if you would like. It would mean a lot to me, seriously. In addition to that, I am also going to be releasing a new episode 2 times this week. Hopefully it'll be out on Wednesday and Saturday. That's going to be my new schedule. I'm really trying to keep to it. I think this one is going to be out a little late. Just because editing has been taking a while. I've been trying to get back to my flow of it. I'm really sorry, guys. But I'm still a chaotic mess. So my current reviews for this coming week, well, it's going to be a little chaotic because I'm kind of blanked on what I was supposed to be reviewing. And I think I will probably be finally making that Steel Rising review for this Wednesday. If I hopefully have the time, do not hold your breath. That might get changed to something else. And I'm going to be reviewing The Cloisters, a new book I've been eyeing for a little while. It's by Katie Hayes. So we'll see how that plays out. I hope all that goes according to plan. So, yeah. Hope you enjoyed the video. On your screen, you should be seeing a link to my channel. You go there and subscribe, that'd be great. In addition, you'll be seeing 2 other links. One's to my Season 2 playlist. That's all the videos from 2022. In addition, below that, you should be seeing a link to a video that YouTube apparently recommends you click on. So, why not click on it? See one of my other videos. Maybe you'll like it. Maybe it'll have something else you'll enjoy. Maybe YouTube doesn't know shit. We'll find out together.